afternoon, everybody. Calling to order the meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Elections for Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. It is excellent to see a full house once again here at one of our meetings. Is there anyone participating virtually today? 2 people online. Thank you for tuning in. I'll remind everybody that you don't have to come downtown to attend one of our meetings. You can monitor them virtually anytime, every time. We also post recordings of our meetings on our website. If you miss a meeting and you're just dying to find out exactly what was discussed, you can review a recording any old time. Today, the bulk of our work is going to be on machine testing, which we are going to do at the very end of the meeting. We're going to recess from here after our absentee ballot discussion and go on down to 50 Cox Avenue. We'll do extensive machine testing, and then we will adjourn from 50 Cox. So I just want everybody to know that they are invited to come on down to the machine testing, and that'll be the main event. But first, we will kick off with a review of the minutes of our last meeting on September 12th. Thank you. Colleagues, did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? Have any questions or comments about them? And I should mention on the record that our colleague Glenn Schultz can't be with us in person today. A member of his household has COVID, and so he is staying home to make sure that he does not bring it in here. And I, for one, appreciate that a great deal, already having had that bug twice. Anyway, minutes look good. I move approval of the minutes of the Tuesday, September 12th meeting. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Mr. Aceto, do you have a vote on this?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schultz, are you tuned in online?
Yes.
All right. Did you have any questions about the minutes, sir?
No, they look good to me.
All right. Thank you.
I don't know how you vote.
So we have a 5-0 vote approving the minutes of the September 12th meeting. Thank you. Next on the agenda is office updates. Director Duncan.
Okay, so we have several office updates. We've got a lot going on. I feel like I'm saying that a lot every single time, so maybe I need to stop saying
But it's true.
But the first announcement that we have is that we have
Have you turned on your microphone?
Is that on? Great. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the first update is that we have gone through the interviews for our warehouse position, and we offered the position to someone, and they accepted, and so they will be starting on October 23rd. And we'll make sure that they come in here and meet you all, because you'll be seeing them quite a bit. And they come to us from Jackson County.
Oh.
So they have elections experience. On Thursday, the 5th, we held the mock election that gets held every election. So all across the state, any counties that are participating in a certain election, so this is our November 7th election, those all get together and we run a mock election with the data. So then we make sure that the data uploads work and that the posting works, and we work with the state to do that. So there were 86 counties that participated in that, and that was successful. I bring it up actually because it's one of the many processes that normally don't get any attention, but this time it did. So we had some media attention on it, and it was great. It's just nice to have more attention on all of the things that we do to prepare for elections and make sure that they run smoothly. Last Friday, absentee ballots went out, so we are actively voting now in the Weaverville, Woodfin Water and Sewer districts. We sent out 17 civilian ballots and 23 overseas ballots on Friday. We've sent out some more since then. So pretty tiny numbers, which means that we don't have any to process today.
How many overseas?
23. That was on Friday. I don't know what the totals are since then. We send them out every day.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I want to make sure we're clear on this. Mary Ann, did you just ask how many are overseas?
Yes.
How many are overseas?
23. 17 civilian,
And
23 overseas.
Wow, thank you.
And we also had a federal holiday in between then, so we haven't received any back yet, but it's small numbers. But we'll go over the process anyway today, which is nice because we'll have lots of time to answer questions about processes. Early voting setup, we have training starting next week, so we're going to set up for early voting tomorrow. And then on Friday is the voter registration deadline for this election. Are there any questions on kind of the election timeline stuff? All right. The other two things that I wanted to talk about were we chatted about director delegation stuff last time, and it took me much longer than I expected to gather what we needed. So I have, just today actually, I got the last of what I wanted to be able to distribute to you. So you should be getting that from me soon, and then we can, after you've all had a chance to review things, then we can talk about it again. And then lastly, another question that was brought up in a previous meeting was the resolutions for absentee authorizations for the municipalities. So I have all of those here if you want to review them. They are durable, so when you see the 1975 date on all of these, that's okay. And then for special districts, there is a law that pertains to those that authorizes absentee for those. That's included along with confirmation from the state board. So we have all of that if you would like to review that. And that's all I have for updates.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Mr. Aceto.
The state board memo regarding absentee ballots is pretty specific about, it's in bold, requiring an authorization resolution for staff to undertake any of the board's review functions. Is that one, did you all do that? Is that applicable this particular go around?
So it's not applicable because you do the review. So we do pre-reviews, right? So we're doing all of that review, and
We're
then
doing
we
a
show.
full review, so there's nothing delegated
That's
in that case.
correct. Yes, and there might be things that you do want to delegate. You know, this go around, definitely not. And we may be able to handle the primary without any delegations. But, we should review that as we go along.
And of course, we'd look to your recommendation on that as to what it is that you think can be most efficiently delegated to staff.
Yes.
And give folks a chance to digest that and comment.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we do have one suggestion, but we'll get to that when we start looking at absentee process.
Good, thank you. Next up is resolution for counting absentee ballots.
So this is the standard resolution that we put out as a notice in the newspaper every election. The statute is listed here, 163-234-2, and this is the resolution that allows us to count absentee ballots or begin the processing of absentee ballots before 7:30 on election day. And the reason that this is important is that early voting is part of absentee. So we need that time, that it's a small window. We start at 2 o'clock. We need that time to pre-process the early voting locations so that those results are ready on election night. So that's the absentee by mail, that's obvious, and the early voting.
Is the language in this resolution the same language we've always had in these
Yes,
resolutions?
yes.
Good. by what date do we need to adopt this resolution?
I forget the actual date that you need to adopt it by law, but in order to get it in the newspaper in time,
Okay.
it's
We should approve it today.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That, I just want to give everybody an opportunity to give it a sufficiently close read. Mr. Schultz isn't with us today. Maybe a quick email to him with the resolution would give him an opportunity. It's only 2 paragraphs, not long. Coming your way, Glenn.
Okay.
Don't sign.
So hopefully, it's been sent, so hopefully.
Okay.
it'll be-
Hopefully the eagle has landed in your inbox, Glenn, but the email's been sent.
Yeah, I've got it.
Good, thank you.
Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, colleagues, everyone's had a chance to take a look at the draft of Resolution 2023-04, a resolution for setting time and place for the purpose of counting absentee ballots for the November 7th, 2023 municipal election. Anyone have any questions or comments on the proposed resolution? All right, I move approval of the resolution. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Staff, thank you very much. We're set, and we shall move along to absentee ballot review. Oops, there aren't any absentee ballots to review. Is there something that you wanted to discuss here?
Yes,
Okay.
so I was just going to do a quick overview of the absentee process and kind of some changes that are happening this year. And then Justin will talk about the kind of the mechanics of the meetings. And we've also provided some new resources that we think are going to be helpful because there are some changes, so we'll take a look at those. And we can answer some questions today, but it also allows lots of time. You know, we have more of these meetings that won't have a lot of ballots, and some of those questions will be easier to answer when we have ballots to actually process. But I thought that it was definitely worth it to go over the process today, and then answer some questions, and then we can transition to the warehouse for the machine testing.
Great.
So that is correct. We didn't get any absentee ballots returned, so we don't have any to review this meeting. But like I said, this is a municipal election. It's small. This is a great time for us to adjust to changes and to learn, because some of us have not done this before. So we have some law changes, and the change that is the biggest impact is the photo ID change, and it actually impacts quite a bit of absentee by mail, the actual process of it. So we have some additional resources, and we'll talk about kind of how the meeting will run with it, because there'll be, for those of you who have done absentee before, you'll see things presented differently because of it. There are, and Justin will go over these more in depth, but we, at your stations, we have created this guide, and Justin will go through it. But it is intended to have the checklist, which if you've processed absentees before, you've seen that. It's kind of a checklist of what the board is looking for when they're looking at envelopes. And there's a different process for the UOCAVA, which is military and overseas ballots. And then we have some resources. So there's a list that has all of the photo IDs that are acceptable. And then there's the photo ID exception form. And that's a process that really changes what happens in the meetings. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. The other thing that we're going to do is members who have done absentee ballots before, you have encountered times where you have gone through the envelope and you disagree with a recommendation, or you find something that you have questions about a certain ballot. And before, we would stop the meeting and talk about those, and that led to some confusion. So we are suggesting holding those. So we have a little form where you can talk to Justin or a staff member to, talk about, oh, this is why I think that this needs to be brought to the rest of the board. If your questions can't be answered there, then we will pull them aside and talk about them all together at the end, so that we stay more organized than we have in the past. And we kind of like have a pink form where we can flag those and avoid those situations of, an hour ago I looked at this,
Right.
What was it?
One of the reasons we've done it in the manner we have historically is because we look at these things precinct by precinct by precinct, and we've always wanted to keep a precinct together. Are you not as concerned about that? You'll just slot them back in the precinct at the end once you've determined the disposition of the ballot?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yep, and we can deal with that with the 852, the scanner. We can put those back in, 950.
950. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. New and
New
improved,
and
the
improved.
950 scanners.
Yes, so that's a suggested change. And then we have the instructions that the voter gets, so you can rely on those. And then we have memos that we think are most applicable, and this is a great, we can add things as we go along. When we find that there are resources that aren't in here that we want. And then we also, in the very back, and Justin will go over this when he talks details, but in the very back is just sample documents of what we send out, so that you know what the voter is getting. Because envelopes and things are different. There's more envelopes, the envelopes look different, the instructions look different, all as a result of the photo ID change.
Time out. You lucky people are here in person, so you get to see the new and improved absentee ballot return. Your ballot, your completed ballot will go in here. It'll be sealed. You'll have your two witnesses and your notary, same as always. But on this side, there is a clear sleeve. And this is where the photocopy of your photo ID will be inserted. This will give staff the opportunity to review the ID without having to open up your ballot, because it's the board that is supposed to open up the ballots. So I like this solution. It's nice and simple, fairly elegant. Props to the state board for figuring out how to do this in a manner that would allow staff to do the necessary review without requiring opening the envelope. Anyway, sorry, just had to give a shout out to the state board on that one. I'm sorry, continue.
Yep, and then the other thing that we started and are refining for this election is tracking on the whiteboard. So for this election, we're probably going to be able to track changes in our head. But as the numbers get bigger, it's more difficult, so we'll be tracking on the whiteboard to help us keep track of, if we move something from approved to pending or something, if we're presenting something to the board that's in pending status and you make a determination, we have to be able to move those so that we can keep our auditing up and not be organized with that.
That also squares with your idea to do the reviews of the questionable ones at the end.
It helps a lot
Much
with
easier to
keeping
track.
Yes.
Something we learned in 2022.
Yes, absolutely. And things might feel a little ridiculous with the small numbers, but we're trying to build our process for the primary when numbers will be bigger.
Good.
And then again, Justin will go over all of these things again, but because of photo ID, there is the photo ID exception form. That's that yellow form that you'll find in the book. And that creates an entirely new category of absentee presentations to the board, because those are determined completely by the board under their own set of rules. So at an absentee meeting, you potentially could have 3 piles of things. These are accepted. We think that these all meet the requirements. The photo ID exception form, which that status that we'll be using and is written on the board is affidavit review pending. I keep saying affidavit pending review because that makes sense to me, but so you'll have that stack. So that's new. That's a completely new process. And then if there's any questions where we're like, board, we don't know what to do with this one, you guys decide. That's pretty rare, but that does happen. So that could be another category that you'll see. So that's kind of the overview of things. Justin will go over kind of what a typical absentee meeting will look like. It will make much more sense when we actually have ballots to review. So ask some questions this time, and you'll definitely have opportunity to ask more questions when we actually have ballots to review. Any questions for me before I hand it off to Justin?
Mr. Aceto.
Just wondering, how is the 950 changing our lives already as far as how we will review things?
For the
Yeah.
board meetings. Well, it shouldn't break down. That was the biggest improvement. It shouldn't have stop our meetings, and we had that happen last election. So that's the biggest improvement. It is faster and it is quieter. It's been very noisy in the boardroom, so
Is it no longer necessary that we follow precinct order as rigorously as we have in the past?
we still need to do that. Yeah, we still need to follow precinct order.
I thought the 950 had the option of being able to scan them into precincts.
That is the express vote.
Okay.
That allows us the way the express vote codes things allows us to not have to do the 30-day sort. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for early voting, the in-person early voting. And that's a big improvement.
All right, anyone have any questions about absentee ballot processing in the abstract?
All right, take it away, Justin.
First of all, thank you, everyone. Looking forward. It's my first absentee meeting with the Buncombe County Board of Elections, and I'm very excited about this. First, I'm going to hand out, these are absentee totals that we've had in the past, and this is going to give us a little bit of perspective on what we're dealing with so far, running count. The numbers indicate so far, like Director Duncan stated, we issued 17 absentee ballots on Friday, 2 on Monday, and then 2 again today. So that's why we've got 21 as a total for that. And then the 23 overseas. Those were emailed out. We have not received any back yet, but as soon as we do, that'll be part of our process. I'm actually going to go in a little bit of reverse. I'm going to start with the packet. If you guys will reach into your absentee ballot packet here, and I'm just going to kind of go over what the ballot looks like and how it may have changed and how it stayed very much this. There's quite a bit that still remained the same. So we've talked a lot about memos and changes in legislature, but there is still a lot that has still remained very much the same. You still either have to have 2 witnesses that have signed, and or a notary that has filled that out. So I'll just work from the corner here. That'll be okay. So go ahead and pull everything out if you would. Your absentee ballot, if you have requested one, will also come with an I voted sticker. But it will come in this large 8.5 by 11 envelope. Within that will be the instructions issued by the State Board of Elections. It's a 4-page document that helps guide you through the process of filling out the absentee ballot. In addition to that, the sleeve will also include the common forms of ID that are accepted by the state of North Carolina, including if you are of a certain age and your license has expired, the state will allow you to use that as a valid form of ID, and that's on the back of that sheet right there. So if you're 65 years or older and you no longer drive, but you still have a license, it will count. Within that packet, there is also the photo ID exception form. This is if you don't have a photo ID. You may fill this out in lieu of a driver's license or a formal form of ID, but that's where the difference will come into play for the board. When we get these back, they will be sealed with all of the pertinent information put on it, and hopefully one of 2 things put on the outside. Now, if it's a voter ID, if it's an ID, then we can validate it, check it in, present it to the board. If it has this yellow form, then we must set it to the side, and then they must review it and validate whether or not the ID is the excuse is acceptable, and that's to the board. And that really is the biggest change. It's not that much more complicated than it was beforehand. I've spoken to other county boards, Wake County, who was in the middle of a municipal. Their percentage of even getting these back, let alone the ID, minuscule. Spoken to our colleagues in the Commonwealth of Virginia who have had to deal with voter ID for several years. Minimal returns or minimal problems. So we're not expecting a big problem with this. And fingers crossed, of course, knock on wood. But if we get to it, if we get these back and there's problems with it, we will try to cure it before the board ever has to look at it. But it is up to them to validate this form, and that's what Director Duncan was talking about. If it's a voter ID, then we can present it to you to yay or nay it. These all have to be verified by the board. So that will be a different procedure. Within it, again, sample ballot for you guys. So you fill your ballot out, place it within the envelope, sign, witnesses, affidavit if you need somebody else to certify it, and seal the envelope for us, please. That's important. Once that's completed, it will go into what we deem the privacy protection envelope. This is what your ballot will be sealed in with your ID, and then that goes into this envelope. That will have the return address to the Board of Elections, and this is what gets returned to us. Sealed. And there you go. Valid ballot. Sealed, protected, private, nobody gets to see anything.
How much postage required?
For return, $1.59 is what
Okay.
the state's stating.
So, everybody, if you wouldn't mind spreading the word on that.
Yes.
Folks need to know. $1.59 to return your absentee by mail ballot. Or, of course, it can be returned in person
Absolutely.
at the office or at one of our early voting sites before 3 p.m. on that final Saturday.
So that's the process of filling out your ballot and returning it to us.
Justin,
Yes.
I have a question. The $1.59 or whatever you came up with, is that written in here somewhere for the voter?
It is. It's actually on that information sheet that is included in it, right here. Second page. Postage for return ballot package is $1.59.
So if they read their instructions, they should be able to
Yes.
do this.
I'll figure.
If,
I'm not sure I would, but
Yeah.
I hope everybody else does.
well, it's 4 pages of instructions.
Yeah.
A lot of people have voted absentee by mail in the past, and they'll feel that they have command of the process, and they might not review those instructions with the rigor that they would if they had never done it before. So
And-
we'll see what happens.
And that'll be our job if it's missing to rectify it, because once we get this at the Board of Elections, we can open this part. Yes.
So the exception form goes inside the sealed ballot?
It
or
will-
Inside the.
It will go in clear.
So it's either a photo or that.
That is correct, sir.
And the exception has to be true?
It's not cured. If it's any one of the reasons that are listed on it, then the board should accept it. So either unable to provide a photocopy with either your driver's license number or last 4 digits of your social security, you lack of transportation, disability, or illness. I'm not going to go through all of them, but yes, for any one of those reasons and they sign it, that's like a form of ID. The only difference being they have to make sure that that reason is valid.
So that becomes strictly up to the board at that point.
Right. But they have to vote unanimously to reject it. It can't be one person objecting. It's still a unanimous.
Right. To the best of my knowledge, we have not received the numbered memo yet that will guide us on this review.
Yes, you have.
We have.
Yes.
What's the number,
It's
please?
2021-03, but updated, so it has a
It's
whole
in your
photo
packet.
ID section. Yep.
2021,
Dash 03.
when we didn't have photo ID,
Yep,
has been updated
correct. Yes.
rather than issuing a new numbered memo.
Yes, and I
Interesting.
definitely,
packet.
if you haven't already, I recommend,
Yeah.
recommend reviewing those. And this packet's nice because it reminds us of all of the different
Good.
numbered memos. And if you think of others or other things that are useful, we can definitely add them. But that's how the state board, they do updates of topics. So that, and it's just obviously a significant update.
Yeah.
So that this will be the
you.
biggest hurdle or difference that board members have maybe experienced in the past. But hopefully this side will be familiar to everyone. It's just hopefully they won't put their ID within the ballot, because if once this is sealed, we have to wait until the board meeting in order to find out if there's ID or not. So, like I said, we'll open the envelope that comes back to the Board of Elections, but not the ballot. One thing that now that we've gotten through that, I would like to walk through the steps of, ballots have come back in. I'm going to do this in 2 phases. The tangible ballot to start with, and then the electronic ballots that have come through from overseas voters. So we'll start with the tangible first. So it's come in. We've opened this in privacy envelope, checked, made sure everything looks good. We hold on to these until the board meeting. If everything looks good, we present them to you. Looks good to us. You sign off on them. We open them for that meeting. We check, only pulling out enough to see if the number ballot matches the code on the outside of the return envelope. If that's approved, then we will take the ballot out, scan them, and then hold them in private until Election Day. We do not, absolutely do not want people knowing how people are voting before Election Day. That is not good. That's really the only process for a regular ballot. Now, for the,
Do you want to mention that they'll be in bipartisan pairs?
yes, I'm sorry. They will be reviewed in bipartisan pairs. So either here in the board, or let's say primary or general, if we need to delegate, that people looking at these ballots coming back in will be looked at by two different parties at a given time. So there's redundancy on redundancy on redundancy for this. Transparency and protection of privacy is what is key here. So that's a regular ballot. Now, we get a UOCAVA, which is military or overseas. That comes back via email, and that has to be duplicated. Now, for this practice, we have new board members. We believe it's best that we allow the two teams to duplicate those ballots here at the board meeting, then we scan them in that process. Again, protecting the privacy of the voter, not releasing that connection to the public at that time. None of this information, none of the ballots can be released to the public again until Election Day. That we cannot stress that enough. And that is pretty much the process for processing the absentee ballots. It's not going to be overly complicated. We're going to try to keep it as clean and as neat as possible. We will be open to recommendations, but that's the meat and potatoes of it. Yes?
Justin, as in the past, will the duplicating teams be 4 members, 2 from different?
There'll be so few a number ballots probably this go round, but it will be at least 1 and 1.
Okay.
At a bare minimum, maybe 1 and 1.
Okay, just a sec. Anyone who has a question's fine, but please direct your questions to me, because I'm chairing the meeting. And Phoebe, when you ask your question, just please identify yourself. Because one of the I've actually gone back and I've looked at some of the tapes of our meetings, and I get frustrated with myself because I'm the one who should be making sure that people say who they are, so that the folks at home, so the folks reviewing the video can understand everything. I love the fact that y'all are here, and I want everybody who reviews our work to know who you are. We also want to know who you are too. And the one other thing I'm going to mention, just because I've got the mic right now, we were talking about numbered memos. They're out there. They're on the State Board of Elections website. They are public information, and I encourage anyone and everyone who has an interest in our process to take a look at those things. Some of them will cover subjects that are going to be important to you, and others, you might just dismiss. But the key thing about numbered memos is there are laws and there are rules that are promulgated that we have to follow. The numbered memo tells us how to do it. That is the State Board of Elections giving instructions to 100 different county boards of elections. And so it might be worthwhile, some of these subject areas, for you to take a look. I'm sorry, Justin.
No, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Director Duncan.
Yes, I just wanted to make, because Phoebe, I think you were talking about the actual duplication process, and I think you may have been thinking about the review process.
Yes.
So, so the review process when we're reviewing and making our recommendations to you, which you're reviewing anyway, so we really are doing double review. Our staff is also doing a bipartisan review, so it's 2 people reviewing that same ballot before it comes recommendation to you, where you're also reviewing it in bipartisan. So we're covered there. That's what Justin was talking about.
Thank you.
Yep. Phoebe was talking about the duplication process.
Which is bipartisan.
It is bipartisan also.
And this board, which is bipartisan. And our election officials at every early voting site and every precinct are bipartisan. What we do in our community is we work together, as parties, unaffiliated, to deliver a high-quality service to the community. I mean, everything that we do, we want to include as many individuals and as many political entities as we reasonably can accommodate, because this is everybody's process. Everything we do is bipartisan. Sorry.
That's good. Good and true. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, I'm not quite done. So the duplicating team, that's a process that is a very formalized process. All the counties do it the same way. It's a 4-person team, and that duplication process, we're wanting to do that in the boardroom for this election, so that everybody sees what that process is. But that's the one recommendation that I definitely have for the primary, is for us to duplicate those before. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a very large amount of time in the meetings duplicating. And I think that's something that you should consider delegating to staff.
And just to clarify, the board spends a lot of time waiting for the duplication to be completed, because the board doesn't do it. And we'll talk about that. I mean, I certainly understand the proposal. We've acted on this in the past, and I look forward to a healthy discussion. Mr. Aceto.
Thank you. Just to confirm, when we say bipartisan, we're talking about if we don't have 2 registered observers from, or board members or participants from the 2 different parties, Democratic and Republican, then we draw from the pool of unaffiliateds, correct? Okay, so we can't have 2 unaffiliateds, but we can have a Republican and an unaffiliated, or a Democrat and an unaffiliated. But as actual practice, that's going to be, as far as just numbers, who's available, it's going to be a Democrat and an unaffiliated when we run out of Republicans, which we're going to do first. So that's kind of an elephant in the room as far as transparency is concerned, is that you're not always going to have the 2 different parties. We have no idea what the inclinations of an unaffiliated voter are, or what their loyalties are, other than that they're unaffiliated. There is no statutory solution to that I know about. I can't even think of a practical one, but it's just a reality. It's just, when we talk about nonpartisan and bipartisan, it's not the 2 major parties. It depends on who we can get. So that's a word to the wise. We need the participation of both parties, unless you are satisfied with a Democrat and an unaffiliated doing all of your duplications.
And this board's very grateful for the increased participation we've seen from, it seems that my colleague is actually looking for an elephant in the room.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the work that the Buncombe County Republican Party has done to boost its participation. Steve, you're stuck with me at least until the General Assembly kicks me out of here. So
I got it. I have to salute that one, my friend. God, that was great.
Director Duncan.
So I just wanted to make sure that it's very clear that we make every effort to, prioritize, people registered as a party. It is very rare, though, and maybe never, that we have not had a Republican on our duplication team. So I don't think we've ever had 2 unaffiliateds and 2 Democrats on a duplication team. We've always had at least 1 registered Republican.
Right. People don't come in here wearing red shirts and blue shirts. They're folks who are helping us all the time to administer our elections. And
they were
mind's
making
a
fun of
little
me earlier. Brings out my eyes. I have to do it.
What color is an unaffiliated? That's kind of.
All right, go
Oh,
Sally.
I did not. I didn't even know that. So.
I mean, the No Labels Party is claimed purple. And the Green Party claimed green, and the Libertarian claimed yellow. So orange, I don't know. if that means-
My favorite color is beige.
Okay, off we
Yeah.
tangent.
Okay, we're getting off subject, and this is not actionable. We can't assign the colors.
Yeah.
Mr. Tate, thank you.
But, yes, well, you gentlemen.
Oh,
asked a question.
Jan Black, I'm sorry. You've had your hand up for a long time.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Jan Black. I have just recognized the man and said his name.
Two questions. First,
Yes.
If there is there's not a photo ID and they've used the exception form, do they vote normal ballot or provisional ballot?
It'll be a normal ballot.
Normal ballot.
Because both either they provide the enclosed photocopy of their ID, or this is with it. So in that same clear envelope or clear window, if they have no means of creating an ID duplication, they can use this in lieu of that. Like I said, the only difference is the board has to review that exception and make sure it's valid. That's all.
Second question.
Okay.
Does the board plan to keep record of how many do not supply photo ID? And if they're using the exception form, which excuse is being used?
It does. The state has generated a way of tracking, and not only that, is if they've notated more than one reason, our system does notate that as well. So yes, we'll be able to track the reasons in addition to just that alone. So, and that is basically the process. It's like I said, it's hopefully not going to be too complicated for everybody.
Sounds good to me, Justin. Thank you. Director Duncan?
Is it on again?
Yes.
Okay, I just had 2 comments. So I want to remind everyone that we can issue voter IDs. So let's not forget that the office has that capability now. And then Justin alluded to this, but and he was talking about Wake County, who's actively in their elections, and they were wonderful. They called us up, and we had a little lessons learned meeting with them. So we learned a lot from them. That was wonderful. But Mecklenburg ran an election in previous to that, and they had, I think it was 24,000 voters, either 24 to 26,000 voters, and they only had 34 ID, yellow forms returned. So that kind of gives you an idea of a volume from a county that did it for the very first time. So like Justin said, I'm not anticipating it to be really big numbers, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's tiny. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? All righty. Well, that's the outline for absentee balloting and absentee ballot processing. We'll do it live next Tuesday. Speaking of which, the next meeting date is Tuesday, October 17th, but that meeting will start at 5:30 p.m. We've been doing 3:30 meetings. We're going to be back to our 5:30 starting next Tuesday. And if no one has anything else, we are going to recess now. It is 4:23 p.m. and we are going to reconvene at 50 Cox at 4:45 p.m. if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine by me. I just wanted to, did you say 50?
Did you say 40 Cox?
50 Cox.
50 Cox.
50 Cox at 4:45.
Anybody who's going to 50 Cox will need one of these to park at our building. So.
Yes, get one. I've gotten a ticket parking over there.
Is everybody here planning on going? Okay. Some of you might have to wait for me to print more off, just so you.
Okay.
But don't worry.
Do we
have
need
one?
do we-
Yes, y'all are all getting one.
Thank you. All right, gang. See you all down at 50 Cox. The meeting is in recess until 4:45 p.m. today.